I remember the day pretty vividly. It was bright blue sky, middle of summer, perfect temperature, a little bit of wind, walking down an old logging road. And I've got a canopy of trees over me, and the sun's filtering through, and I see something in front of me kind of fly over the trail. And I'm thinking to myself, that was huge! What could it possibly have been out here? So I walked down to the part of the trail where I thought I saw this thing fly into the woods. And I kind of scan around, and then I look up. And staring back at me is the biggest eyes I've ever seen and flat face of a barred owl. And it was so magnificent that I was like just stunned that this thing is just looking at me. So I was able to actually walk back down the road to my truck, grab my camera, and walk back, and it was still there, just looking at me. And I took so many pictures of this thing, and it was just one of the best wildlife experiences that I've ever had. And it didn't actually fly off until I kind of threw a rock at the tree it was in, and then it finally took off. And its wingspan was huge. So of course I had to go home and read up on the barred owls and figure out why is it out in daylight and what is it really doing and how big they really get. So that was an interesting day. But the place that I was at is what I really want to talk about, and it's a place called Brookfield. And this place is located on the Columbia River, a couple miles downriver of Cass-Lamont, Washington. I found this place by accident. It's on the maps. It's an old logging road, and then the logging road comes out to this dead end where it stops at these dredge spoils. So you've got this big sand pile, and below that you have this rocky beach, and then you have the Columbia River. And behind all that you have a sloping hill up into the woods. And this just has become my home away from home. I love taking my friends out there. I love showing them this place. It's a perfect place to go out and have a picnic, spend the day in the sun. I take my kids out there all the time. They absolutely love it. What kid doesn't like water and sand? Water, sand, rocks, what else could you ask for? So, we go out there and we spend the day and we do our target practice. We go look through the creek that it runs down for artifacts from the old town that used to be there. And we also look along the beach, along the Columbia itself, for things that wash up and for also old artifacts. So this town of Brookfield was started by J.G. Megler, who was a representative the Astoria Megler Bridge is named after, and he came out with his wife from Massachusetts to start this cannery at this place called Brookfield that he named Brookfield. And so they built a big mansion up on a little knoll that overlooked the other houses in the town. And then the logging company, after a while, bought the town and destroyed the house. But when you go up onto that little knoll where that mansion used to be, you can see artifacts from the house. There's broken glass, there's old tin cooking pots, there's an old bed spring, there's a washing machine. And this took place in like the early 1900s is when this house was built, this mansion. And we were able to even find their water source. We found this pipe on the ground and we followed it back up into the hill, and sure enough there's this big basin sitting there that is now full of sediment, so there's only a thin layer of water on top of it. But it was this big structure and we're like, this is freaking cool. So this is a place that I just love to show people the history, and I love to go out there because it's so beautiful on the river with the trees and the wildlife that's out there. And even at night, going out and stargazing, you get away from the night lights. You might even hear some very creepy sounds in the woods behind you because they do have bear and they do have cougars. And it's usually the cougars or the coyotes you hear out there attacking things. And it gives you a little bit of the chills. And it gives you a little bit of a good time. But other than that, going out on a nice bright day during the summer is just joyful. And it is definitely my home away from home.